First, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Sandee Kastrul, and I'm the president and co-founder of icstars. I'd like to give thanks to Dia Consulting for really engaging icstars in this process of bringing icstars to Denver. I think, Dia has the vision of engaging the technology community in developing the next generation of technology talent, and I have a ton of respect for all of our friends at Zia. So without further ado, I would like to talk about icstars and what we do. We are an organization based in Chicago, and we find talent, train talent, and put talent to work. So this is we are considered a workforce development organization, but I think what's really unique about icstars is that we believe firmly that people who have overcome adversity, who have graduated from the school of hard knocks, have developed a toolkit of resiliency, if you will, and that by overcoming adversity, inherent in that toolkit is problem solving, resiliency, critical thinking skills, and that these skills have been developed not out of a luxury but out of a necessity. And what we also discovered was this beautiful technology landscape where at the end of the day technologists ask great questions, and as developers our goal is to build solutions, solve problems. And so this sort of systems thinking, methodology-rich culture of technology is really just the perfect place to begin to teach the hard skills of programming, of technology, and to look at how can we apply that systems thinking and that methodology to the communities that we come from. So that there's a core set of skills that sit between our communities and technology, whether we consider ourselves change agents, building solutions that will change our businesses, or agents of change, building solutions that will change our communities. And so the idea of founding icstars was, we can truly be the ones we've been waiting for in our communities and arm our communities with these processes, with this methodology, and a hard skill that regardless of where we are, we can always apply to the business. And as a result of the shortage of technology workers, there would be a place for us, a seat at the table, and that we could revolutionize our communities and our businesses at the same time by deploying talented, resilient, entry-level technologists who are experts at solving problems. So we really believe that these fundamentals that are necessary to succeed in technology and in business are the same as community leadership. And the picture on this slide, I love it so much because it's one of our, this is a picture of our internship, and it's a project-based learning environment. And so Sparkle, sitting in the front, is the project lead for her team. And she had just really kind of stepped into her own as a project manager and stood up for herself and her team and her project plan, and had her team for the first time really on track. And so I love this picture because it embodies that spirit of confidence. You can see in the background how the different members of her team are engaged, are admiring, and are getting to work. And so I think it reinforces that idea of, finding, training, and putting talent to work. So the program itself, our vision is 1,000 community leaders by 2020. And so it's a massive undertaking to really get to meet that vision. We recruit from community-based organizations, schools. We'll see, up to 400 candidates to to start one cycle of training for 10 to 15 people. The target audience is interesting. So, we do not have age restrictions, but the target is about 18 to 27. I think what's important in this note is that we are not funded by any government entities. icstars is funded by the business community, as well as some foundations that support program development. And that's an important distinction because as a workforce development organization or as a technology training organization, it's really imperative that we're positioned as an opportunity for both the business and the community rather than a charity. That way expectations are high. Our folks going into work are not seen as sort of the charity model, and they're treated just as their peers would be. It was also important to see icstars as an investment in the early days, and I think it still holds true today. So the businesses that say, yes, I want to invest in entry-level talent, they're not just investing their dollars, they're also investing volunteer hours, getting their team engaged, and helping us develop relevant curriculum so that when our folks are finished with their internship, they have the skills to meet the market needs. We also require a GED or a high school diploma. Oftentimes we'll have folks who come to icstars, really want to do the program, and they may not have those credentials yet, so we're able to refer them to other organizations that can help them get there. And then I think one of the most important pieces is around this idea of it's bigger than you. So, there are many awesome technical training programs, schools, for folks to get the technical training and go into a career. But icstars is really rooted in this idea of community leadership. So the most successful people in our program have even financial responsibilities outside of themselves. So people with children do very well. People who are taking care of an ailing parent or sibling. Because at the end of the day, when you're trying to solve a bug at 1 o'clock in the morning, the person who's looking at a picture of their kids and saying, I'm doing this for, for my family, is going to stick with it a little bit longer, or a lot longer in many cases, than the person who's thinking about their gaming system at home. Our program itself, as I mentioned, 400, 600 people to get the 15 folks in each cycle. Over 2 years, 6,000 hours of project-based learning and education. And our model, we sort of follow the medical school model, where the first 4 months is an internship, and that's the project-based learning environment. And then you move into the residency, which is a full year of working on site, doing social media work, quality assurance work, and really developing those professional skills as well as technology skills in a certain track. And then the fellowship model, which is that second year of training and actual work. So working in the fellowship would mean, doing .NET development or Salesforce or programming with a particular business. And I'll talk more about that later. From a skills-focused standpoint, the last 2 years, our focus has really been on data and process analysis because that's been where the jobs are in Chicago. There's been some systems integration work, and then, of course, support work has been with us from the very beginning. We do some web development, but those are really where we're focused in Chicago, and that's where the Chicago market is. And again, the reason why it's so important to be market-facing and to engage the corporate sector in this is to make sure that we're training the right skills at the right time. And then I think one of the really special things about icstars, or the cornerstone of our culture, is that every day we have high tea. So at 4 o'clock, the whole company stops. We sit around a conference table, and we have real tea with our pinkies out. No, I'm kidding. We don't really stick our pinkies out. And we invite a different business or community leader to our table to share their journey. And it's a very, very powerful way of engaging the network, the business community at icstars. It's probably one of the most interesting ways to look at how is this next generation thinking about business, about technology, and about their responsibility. And I'll tell you, I've had CIOs leave our tea table and say, oh my goodness, the icstars interns ask better questions than my management team. And as they're driving home, they're thinking, okay, how can we hire these folks? They're calling, HR and figuring out, can we start a rotation program, an internship program? And then they're calling the community side of the business and saying, how can we support this organization? And then they're engaging their team and saying, how can we volunteer as mentors and coaches for this organization? So it really is the catalyst for opportunities. At icstars we say that leadership is making opportunities for others. And our daily high tea is, I think, the embodiment of that idea, because not only are we making opportunities for executives to get engaged and to change perceptions about what entry-level talent can and should be, but I think more than anything there's this beautiful reciprocity that happens at tea where everyone, rather than talking about yourself, you introduce the person next to you, and that you're always positioning the people around you for an opportunity. And that's really how we measure the success of high tea, is what opportunities were made. So as a result of this project-based learning environment, of high tea, of a market-driven curriculum, we are confident in our ability to produce a reliable source of talent, of tech-savvy talent, and that also leaders with social involvement in the community. So again, this concept of, it is bigger than me, and how am I going to create opportunities for my work and for my community? So you can see here's a picture of one of our alums at high tea, and in this tea, she was meeting with an executive at Blue Cross Blue Shield, and that ended up being where she went to work when she completed her internship as a business analyst. So here's a visual picture of the program structure. So the internship program, as I mentioned, this is the 4-month, and you can see on the screen it's 1,200 hours. So if you're doing the math right now, you're thinking, wait, it must be a typo, or she must be crazy. No, actually, it is an aggressive, immersive, project-based environment. So it's 12 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and we are open during the weekend as well. This idea is, predicated on the concept that in order to have a huge transformation life shift, you've got to eat, breathe, and sleep transformation. And so we intentionally build a very aggressive program where folks are immersed in this technology, culture, and environment. So, many of my friends who are educators said, you've basically crammed a 2-year degree into 4 months, and why not stretch it out and give people the time? And the truth of it is that if we had the luxury, that's exactly what we would do. We would go to 2-year, 4-year colleges and call it a day. But folks need to go to work and begin to transform their lives. We are incredibly strict as well. So we say, you can't be absent or late or you're fired. And that's a very different path that a lot of workforce development organizations would take. Again, it's very competitive to get in. It's very competitive to graduate. And icstars is not something that you go through. It's really something that you join. And that's very important because, your first 4 months of work, you can't be late or absent. So we sort of work it out here. We look at all the risk factors. What are all the things that would prevent you from being on time? How do we mitigate those risks? And a lot of times what can happen here is that in putting this line in the sand, we're able to see what are sort of the social problems that really prevent people, whether we're in unhealthy relationships, whether there is a substance abuse issue, whether that is a lack of support in someone's family. And so we can, again, uncover these things, get folks the resources, the help that they need, and they can apply in another cycle when they've moved through those obstacles. So the next phase is the residency program that I mentioned before, and that would be 1,600 hours, and then moving into the fellowship program, which is another 1,600 hours. During this whole 2-year period, we would partner with community colleges. Here it's the city colleges in Chicago, so that our folks are getting an associate's degree at the end of those 2 years. Now, this is important, and this is part of the evolution of our program. So, for our first 10 years, it was really just the internship program. We were founded in '99. We started training in 2000. And to be frank, the landscape looked very different. We were also small enough that we could call up our CIO network, talk to them and say, hey, I've got a group of great analysts here or programmers here. How many people can you take? Well, as we grow and expand, we're not able to, certainly place every person with a phone call. And they're going through HR processes where a lot of times they've got to submit their resumes online. They are weeding out folks that don't have the credentials. And so we thought it was imperative that our folks were getting that degree so that at the end of a 2-year period, there wouldn't be any gates in their way, or roadblocks, I should say. At the same time, they've spent 2 years doing technology work for real clients and building their portfolio. So, they have industry experience, they've got the credential, they've got some technology certifications, and so the value proposition here is that after somebody comes, through icstars, they're ready to hit the ground running in your business, whether that is a Fortune 500 business, a startup, or a mid-sized firm. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the internship training program here and sort of how we do what we do, because I think that we've got a very unique model, and that this would be sort of the first piece that we would deploy in Denver to talk about with you. So as I mentioned, the 4-month internship is really about 3 projects. And so the first week of icstars, the 10, 15 people go through team week. So it's all about, learning about each other, learning about yourself, your learning style, cross-cultural communication, trust. And that Friday, the group is divided up into 3 or 4 teams. They form their own consulting companies, and they are going to be competing with each other for this first RFP. Now, nothing says fun times like a competition. And so after a week of, introspection, learning about each other, it can be very exhausting. So that Friday night, the teams have all been settled, people go back, kick it with their friends, and at 8 o'clock at night, the first RFP is sent out to only the project managers. Well, inevitably what will happen is that, one project manager will have gotten the RFP, called the team together over the weekend, they've highlighted it, they've come up with questions, they've done some research on the company, on the technology solution, and Monday morning when they come to icstars, they are ready to go. They're dressed in suits, and they've got a list of questions. The second team, maybe the project manager got the RFP, but nobody told them what to do. There were no instructions, and so they didn't do anything. And then the third team didn't see it, didn't open it. The team show up on Monday morning, and they're wearing jeans. And so the race is on. And this is probably one of the first big learning moments where, philosophically, again, we believe that really resilient people already have the skills and the toolkit. They just may not have the context. So we provide contextual learning here. And so rather than pre-teach this is how you go to you know, a kickoff meeting with a client. This is how an RFP works. We just give it to them and debrief after the actual meeting. So, for example, you know, the second meeting, a fight breaks out on the client side between the technology folks and the business folks. And the teams are, you know, there to present their solutions and ask some questions, and they've got to shift gears very quickly because this political fight happens in the middle of the meeting. And, you know, the theme for the day is defending your client. Did you build trust and credibility with your client that day? And so after the meeting, you know, back at the whiteboard, we talk about what happened. Where are you on this 2x2, you know, in terms of trust and credibility, likability, and how would you have done things differently? And that's a tremendous learning experience because you got to experience it. You got to do it. You got to, you know, go by your gut, trust what you know, and then you've got the time to have reflection and discuss with the other learners, the other consultants, and a facilitator, what would you have done differently? What were the unwritten rules in any given situation? So it's very powerful. The client is usually one of our CIO sponsors, and they engage their team in this project, and it's part of their sponsorship. And, you know, this is a very powerful thing, I think, because in an age where we are really trying to retain our best and brightest workers, allowing them an opportunity to engage with icstars, to engage with the next generation, is just incredibly powerful. So one of the companies that we work with, they were going through some restructuring, and one of the DBAs was thinking about leaving very seriously. She looked up at her calendar and realized that the next week was going to be icstars in this project. And, you know, I'm happy to say that, gosh, 7 years later, she's still there. And that's a really powerful testament to, you know, wanting to be engaged, but more than anything else, I think it positions her employer as an employer of choice, somebody who is engaged in the community and engaged in developing talent. So I love that story because, you know, to this day, she is still a part of the project and really loving being a mentor in this capacity. So the skills that are developed, clearly, you know, requirements definition, they'll do vendor analysis, project estimation, but I think some of those leadership skills around mediating conflict, figuring out the unwritten rules, learning how to ask consultative questions, doing a root cause analysis, those are critical skills that, you know, we use for a lifetime. The second month we switch gears pretty dramatically, and it's a business planning competition. So now we work with local venture capitalists, and the teams have got 3 to 4 weeks to develop a profitable e-commerce business. What's terrific about this is that, you know, we're coming to that place of dare to dream. So folks are looking at what is a problem that I would like to solve, and how do I sort of use technology to do it? So whether it's something you see in your community, whether it's something you see on a larger scale, everybody picks an idea, and they do a Minto model. So they come up with the problem, the solution, how big is the market, and they present it to our entrepreneur in residence. They'll select the 4 most likely businesses to generate profits. They become the CEOs. They pick their own CFO, Chief Marketing Officer, and Chief Technology Officer from the remaining members of the group, and those are their business partners. And so, you know, we've got a team of VCs who sort of shepherd them through this process. We engage the entrepreneurial community as mentors, and, you know, they are not only developing the financial modeling skills, really becoming Excel junkies, but there's application development, of course, web development, mobile development. A lot of rich marketing skills are developed here, and that really, more than anything else, I think they're learning how to define a problem, and that, of course, can be applied in so many different directions between business and community. The culminating event here is they do a presentation to 10 to 15 VCs. It is one of the most memorable moments of the whole training program. It's both terrifying and thrilling at the same time. And 5 years as an alum, they always come back and talk about that defining moment. And how, had they known then the magnitude of the VCs that were in the room, they would have been even more terrified. But that's neither here nor there. It's really about the experience. And then I think one of the takeaway lessons here is around bootstrapping a business. So at the end of the day, I don't know how much venture capital they need, but they realize that they've got real operating results in 3 weeks. Imagine what they could do in 6 months and 2 years. And then the third project is it's application development. This is a real technology the project. And the client here is a nonprofit. So we build an application for a nonprofit that may not have the resources to hire a consulting company or even in-house technology. And so this is pure and simple. They're doing systems development life cycle, and there's quality assurance testing, programming, all those things. And instead of being divided up into teams, they're one team building additional functionality on the application. And so that really is the internship in a nutshell. Of course, we fortify this with night school, just-in-time learning modules. So across business, leadership, and technology, there is, just when the individual is kind of gone out, done their initial research, is struggling, we'll have a subject matter expert come in and give them that information that they need just when they need it. And so again, it's not about pre-teaching anything. It's about really experiencing something, using the resources that you have, and then fortifying that with subject matter experts, just-in-time learning modules that help you drive solutions. Similarly to, when we're at work, if we got a new project and we certainly don't know exactly how to do every piece, we figure it out on our own. And so we oftentimes say the difference between school and work is that school is all about everybody else, and school is all about you, and work is about everybody else. And so really being able to make that transition from, whether it's 12 years of school to really being ready for work and making opportunities that way. You can see on the left side some of our sponsors, and these are TTX, United Stationers, and Siemens are our sponsors in Chicago, and they're the ones who are very engaged in that first project. So I would not be doing my job if I didn't talk about the impact and some of our metrics here. And so you can see that the employers are on the left side and our sponsors, and that our initial placement rate is 95%. We're extremely proud of that rate, so that anyone completing their internship is considered in that category. And then our industry retention rate is 81%, and that includes, the different states of the economy. Our alums working in technology and staying in those companies over 3 years is 81%. Our college attendance rate to date is 44%, and this is one of the reasons why our model has evolved in the way that it has. We want to get that to 100%, where our folks are going to college, and so that's where our partnerships at the higher education level are so critical to get that metric up. And then you can see the power of the average 12-month earnings before the program to after the program. And just, you know, you can begin to imagine how that would impact our families and the resources and opportunities that are afforded as a result. I think the big number here is how the engagement in our community is at 70%. You can also see some of the different roles. So the residency roles, that's the next step after the internship. Everything from, you know, CRM maintenance to quality assurance consultants. We also have a social media management business here at icstars where we're employing our graduates out of the internship program, and a portion of the proceeds goes back and funds the training program. And then fellowship roles from .NET developers to service desk analysts, and then CRM integration coordinators or managers, to what the full-time employment roles look like. And so you can kind of see where someone would head down a track, they would get real experience, they would be increasing their wages all the way through, and then at the end of the 2 years when they're going into full-time employment, these are some of the roles that they're getting. Okay, so this next slide kind of shifts gears a little bit to the network. And so, you know, again, what's really critical here is that icstars is not a program in a vacuum. There in Chicago, we've got 1,000 volunteers who literally make us what we are. I like to think about it as they are under the table kind of holding up all of the knowledge and all the resources that sort of come our way. And so what we have is we do 4 think tank events per year. And this brings together the technology community in Chicago and positions our technology leaders, you know, as thought leaders in the space. So for example, Capitalize on Illinois is a roundtable breakfast where we have all of our CIOs come and visit, and each one of the tables is led by a CIO, and they're talking about, you know, the global economic forces, how it's impacting the workforce, what's coming down the pike, what are the things on their mind. We have what we call the ILC, which is the icstars Leadership Council, that comes up with the topics for those events. So it's a group of CIOs from Fortune 50 companies that are saying, you know, this is what I'm struggling with. I'd love to have a conversation about this with other CIOs. The beauty of this is that those roundtable discussions are also filled with our alums and our interns. And so there's this beautiful mentoring that happens. And then we're able to leverage the CIO network to invite the technology service providers to sponsor the events, engage with the CIO network, and have a seat at that table as well. And so that's our flywheel for really bringing the IT community together, for, you know, developing a revenue engine that supports the training program, and that we really become a hub for technology executives to plug in, to engage with each other, and to meet and you know, our interns and alums. What is really special about this is that our interns and alums have had tea with all of the CIOs in the room. So they've already established a relationship, and oftentimes they play the role as the connector between the service providers and the CIOs. Our second event, the Eye Opener, is all around innovation. And so now we bring together the startup community, the entrepreneurial community, and our CIOs to talk about innovation in our organizations. And so we're starting to open our minds and learn from both sides of the table. What's more, we're setting the stage to expanding entrepreneurial talent in our state, and what are the things that we need to do as a larger community to make that happen. So we know that the growth in our industry is going to come from the entrepreneurial sector, and so this is really, kind of putting that stake in the ground here. The third event is really just a very fun and exciting Tech Bash networking celebration. We invite all of our CIOs to be celebrity bartenders, and then we're able to sell sponsorships, the barback sponsorship, to our service providers to spend the evening serving drinks together. It's a ton of fun. There is no speaking or thought leadership. Maybe there's, bartending leadership happening here as the CIOs mix up their favorite cocktails. And then our fourth event is our stakeholders event, and this is really our annual, like instead of a shareholders meeting, it's our stakeholders meeting. We celebrate on Dr. King Day, and what's very special about this is we invite everyone to bring their families. So throughout the day, there are different courses. There's a course on leadership, there's a course on economics, a course on Dr. Martin Luther King, a course on impact, and we have different speakers come in for each course, and just as a different food course is served, of course. And the children go and spend the morning working with a local artist. And then the very last course of the day is the course on creativity, and the children come back down and perform for everyone. And it is really just a wonderful day to spend with your family, with the network, and honoring the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. So our CIO engagement model, I just wanted to share with you because this is literally how we do what we do. So, when a CIO is new to the network, we want to engage them to get to, so they get to know the organization. And so the best way to do that is to invite them to high tea. After they've been to tea and sort of really get what we are at our soul level, they're invited to be a table host for one of our events and really kind of see what it looks like from the network perspective. So that's sort of the one to get to know the organization inside and then get to know the larger community around icstars. After that, the CIOs are, become sponsors, become engaged with the organization, and this is really about participating in the program and sharing that with their organization. And so there's lots of different ways that CIO organizations get engaged, whether that's job shadowing or mock interviews or, just getting tickets for their team members. And then, of course, employment. And so really figuring out the project staffing models, whether, what their need is from a staffing perspective, and then what the model design should be, whether it's temp to perm or developing a rotation program with the organization. And then I think here, the employment configuration options are very interesting. So, looking at straight W-2 employment, we will publish a job order, we'll market it internally, and then we'll help you find just the right candidate through the application or applicant tracking system. The value here is that it's a low-risk entry-level talent source for your organization, and then you can see on the right-hand column are some of the companies in Chicago that use these options. So the next round is sort of a temp to perm or a contractor position. And this is interesting because we work with one of our local staffing partners, and then we source talent from specific temp to perm roles. What's nice about this is that you get the try before you buy, and so for the first maybe 12 months, they are a temp or working for the staffing company, and then you can say, yes, we want to hire this person on as a full-time employee. The next option is a rotation program, and we'll work with you to configure a 24-month rotational program that's meeting a need that maybe right now you're outsourcing. This is a lower cost solution than offshoring work. It's also a permanent source of young, enthusiastic, and hungry talent. And so there's a real value here in bringing that energy into your organization. and that our partners who have gone this route are very, very satisfied because in that 2-year period, they're investing in the first few months, getting folks up to speed, getting a very specific learning objectives, but that pretty quickly our folks are billable and they are doing great work and growing throughout the year. That second year, they become mentors for the next first year folks coming into the organization. So that investment is being returned, and it's a very powerful model that is getting a lot of notice, even outside of IT. And then the last option here is around projects. So you can work with us, and we work with one of our project partners, whether that's like SharePoint, .NET development. You've got a big project to do, and icstars fellows or residents are part of that resource mix. So you've got some senior level folks, and then you've got icstars in the mix as well. It's innovative, it's very cost effective, and again, you get the try before you buy. You're learning about people, they're learning about your business, and getting experience at the same time. So those are some of our employment options. Of course, we're always interested to hear what the needs are for a company and how can we meet those needs. So our expansion process, I've talked a lot about Chicago and how we do it here, and this is the model for how we would come to Denver. The first step is really discovery, and this is where we are as you're watching this or listening to this presentation. So the goal here is to get you interested, and I hope that by now in my presentation you're very interested. And basically what we're doing is we're identifying a steering committee, folks that are really engaged and want to bring icstars to Denver. And then having you say, you know what, I know somebody else who's really got to be on this team. And then starting to think through where's a physical location for our first phase. So the first phase is the legacy project. And basically what the legacy project is a 3-day intensive workshop to start shaping the program in Denver. And what we would do is bring together 12 very diverse people in the Denver community. So that would be, a CIO, a CEO, a startup person, an investor, marketing person, someone in workforce development, education, community organizer, an artist, but people who in their life have experienced things from different filters. Over the 3 days, we would take some of our leadership curriculum and really begin to do some root cause analysis on what is the issue or the problem that you want to solve in Denver. And so again, bringing those diverse perspectives to this table is incredibly valuable because you're really looking at the issue from 360 degrees. Over the 3 days, we'd also have high tea, so we'd invite some celebrities in the Denver area to join us for tea, which is very exciting. And that the outputs from this 3-day leadership curriculum is, determining the roadmap, certainly, learning about the culture and values, and being steeped in icstars curriculum, and then meeting each other and forming this bond with the steering committee that is, being able to identify the curriculum roots for the icstars program. So this legacy project is an exciting way to do our discovery work and to figure out, okay, what are the needs in Denver and how do we deploy them? The next step, or the next phase, is called the pop-up installation. So out of that legacy project, we would take one of the projects that I described earlier, the RFP competition, the business planning competition, or the nonprofit application, and we would pop it up in Denver. And so what this means is that it would be about a half a month prior, a month-long project, and a half a month after to engage the community, to deliver this project, to recruit the folks, and do a heavy marketing blitz so that everyone is kind of witnessing this project, getting engaged with it, learning about the program, but learning about it from an experiential perspective. And so we would recruit the folks, we would select the project, secure the space, schedule teas for that month, and then promote the final presentations in your community. So depending on which community you're engaging for the pop-up, it would either be the enterprise folks, the investor entrepreneurial community, or the nonprofit community. And then the next step is the permanent installation. So after we did a pop-up or maybe two pop-ups, and there's great interest, we would celebrate that, have an event, and then begin to think about how do we get the 4-month internship to a permanent home in Denver. We would start to identify the executive team, get employers on board, schedule the events, those 4 signature events I described, a recruiting process, and an engagement model for volunteers. And so that would really look like the 4-month internship to job placement or internships in the Denver technology community. And then the very last phase here is about folding in the social enterprise. And the social enterprise, again, is that professional services, the 2-year program, where a portion is going back and funding the training program. And in order to make that work, we need this runway to determine, where's the market demand. Like here, the social media management services has been really terrific, as well as quality assurance. Maybe that's not the case in Denver, but it's going to take us some time to figure that out. And then developing the residency and fellowship program with the key stakeholders, the steering committee, and everyone who's been engaged thus far. And so that is what brings us to the icstars Denver. You guys would own this. It would be your organization to shape and mold. And you can see these are our program goals around identifying the talent with leadership potential, and brokering the access to the social, financial, and intellectual capital necessary for our folks to lead. And the social capital is your network, and why the network is so important in this model. The financial capital is not just our earnings and our savings and investment, but how we give back into the community. And then our intellectual capital, like lifelong learning and relationships with educational institutions, so that we're getting those credentials and information and knowledge and breaking and building new paradigms for our families. And then the third is really around, the opportunities for our alums to affect real change in our communities through entrepreneurship, through advocacy and service. And then lastly are around balancing the forces that really take us away from our goals and being aware of them, and how do we help each other, whether that's through our social enterprise activities and sort of being a resident or a fellow and staying engaged with icstars, or it's through our counseling services or mentoring services in the industry. So when I talked about the legacy project, I talked about the steering committee roles. Here you'll see at the top of the page are the archetypes that we're looking for. And then out of that comes the discussion and decisions that steering committee will need to make as we move through these 4 phases. The supporting roles, so around the overall legacy project, are the ILC that I mentioned, the icstars Leadership Committee, that's actually very much engaged with the networking events, with the presentations and context, as well as content for those events, developing those think tanks. Of course, we're always looking for great tea speakers, coming to tea, whether that be at a pop-up or, of course, at the Legacy Project, and sharing your story. And then, of course, the program committee. And this is really these are the folks who are going to roll up their sleeves and get into the curriculum and really figure out, okay, this is the technology that we should be focused on for these jobs in the next 6 months. So by now you are super engaged and you're thinking, where do I sign up? And here are the 5 things that you can do to get engaged and to plug into icstars Denver. One is you want to nominate yourself or someone else for the Legacy Project to be one of those 12 people at the table. This will be an unforgettable experience and a great way to build your social capital with other leaders coming from different perspectives. You can also join the icstars Leadership Committee, the ILC, that designs the think tank events. You can become an employer for icstars and commit to developing the next generation of technology leaders. So be on the Employment Council and sort of sign up to say, yes, these are the kind of jobs that we'll be needing, and this is where I want to plug in. You can join the Program Committee and develop the relevant technology and leadership curriculum for icstars Denver. And of course, you can become a sponsor. And that means making a financial contribution and saying, I want to invest in this program at this time so that we can really transform our community and create opportunities for others. So that is the spiel. Thank you for taking the time to listen, to support our mission, and of course for seeing stars. This last photo is a picture of some of our alums at our last Capitalize on Illinois event, meeting the CIO from Baxter. And the story that I like to share here is that the young man that you see without a jacket on was an intern of the organization. So not an intern meaning a student, but we actually have interns here as well. And so he showed up at the event and he didn't have a jacket on, and our alum said, dude, where's your jacket? And it was just a very, very special moment. As you know, I think we all remember the moment that we realized that it was time to do business, and sort of the suit that we needed to put on to enter this next chapter of our life. I've never seen this young man again without a jacket. So thank you for your time, and thank you for beginning this engagement process with icstars, and thanks to Zia for making this all possible.